Hey guys, it's the Tominator. So for these next two videos, I want to go back to probably the most talented era in bodybuilding history. We're talking about the late 90s. This footage is taken from the 1998 Mr. Olympia and features the top three callout of Ronnie Coleman, Flex Wheeler, and Nasser El Sonbaty, who went 1, 2, and 3 respectively. The former champ Dorian Yates had retired the previous year, so the title was open for the taking. And I was still a kid back then, so it wasn't following bodybuilding. But from what I've read, the main favorites going into the show were people like Flex, Nasser, possibly Kevin Levrone. Ronnie Coleman wasn't really in the discussion, even though he'd been steadily picking up steam and had beaten both Kevin and Flex in the past 2 years. But the guy only took 9th in 97, so I suppose it must have seemed a little far-fetched. Anyway, in the front double biceps, it's very close between Coleman and El Sonbaty. Ronnie was definitely more ripped, as you can note in his thigh and arm separation. Heck, even his serratus looks sharper. And while I love those mighty biceps peaks on him, that gyno in his left pec is like a visible stain on his physique. Depending on your tolerance level for that, this alone could cost him the pose. Nasser's basically matching him on size, with his arms also looking enormous, and his taper is arguably even a little better when he sucks in the waist like that. One area where he definitely has the advantage is the calves. Then of course you've got the Sultan of Symmetry, Flex Wheeler, living up to his namesake. Flex was aesthetic as a statue, but he's giving up way too much mass here and looks a little soft, so he has to be third. Based on this look, my money's on Ronnie. If it weren't for the gyno, he'd take this one on the basis of better conditioning, so I don't think a relatively minor flaw like that should cause him to lose. But let's dive a little deeper into this. I've got a couple photos to look at, so Nasser is out angling the crap out of him in this first one, but even adjusting for that, he admittedly looks better. His legs and abs appear more defined now, and I'd have to give it to him. But this second photo is more in line with what we just saw in the video. Ronnie's back in the middle and Nasser isn't stepping forward as much, and the lighting really seems to be favoring Ronnie also. He looks terrific, and even the swollen nipple isn't as apparent. I'm not sure if these pics have been touched up or doctored to edit that out, but either way, I'd have Ronnie narrowly winning this first mandatory. I wouldn't fault you if you chose Nasser, though. It was really close. Alright, back to the video. The front lat spread, I believe, has to go to El Sonbaty. He's so much wider across the shoulders, it's not even funny. Ronnie looks shockingly small here, and no wider than Flex Wheeler, who was notoriously narrow. Nasser was a bit blocky, but he's got those powerful delts and a much better shoulder-to-waist ratio. And the abs and calves are both nice bonuses, of course. I think his structure here is ultimately a little too much to handle for this lighter version of Ronnie. The side chest was another close contest, but I'm going with Coleman once again. His chest is so round and thick, it's like twice the thickness of Nasser's, and his shoulders also stack up better from the side. Nasser's got the abs locked in though, and that split down his outer thigh is probably deeper, so those are some details in his favor. His advantage in the calves is totally nullified now though. Ronnie's look just as good here from the side. Flex is a distant third. Frankly, he often looked like he was in the wrong weight class standing next to these two monsters, and his conditioning wasn't nearly good enough to make up for it. Overall, I'm casting my vote for Ronnie on the basis of greater roundness, better polish, and last but not least, a superior chest. From the back. Now, this is where Ronnie slammed the door on these fools. I mean, we can talk about who won which pose and why. We can talk about who beat who when it comes to certain body parts, or who was the most conditioned or most massive. But at the end of the day, I think margin of victory has got to count for something. I mean, if you just squeak ahead in a couple poses, as you could argue Nasser did with the front double and side chest, that's not nearly as impressive as completely running away with a pose. We all know this intuitively, right? It's just common sense, so simply tallying up the poses isn't enough, or it shouldn't be at any rate. Because here in the back double, Ronnie utterly destroys them. LOL at Flex just staring at Ronnie's glutes for like a full 10 seconds there. self-consciously pulling down his own posing trunks to hide his soggy ass. Alright, so from the waist up, they're both within striking distance. Nasser has comparable mass with bigger shoulders and arguably an even drier lower back, while Flex is displaying just as much fine detail in the upper back, but downstairs, come on, it's not even close. Nasser's got great calves and some well-defined hamstrings, I'll give him that, but the glutes are not sharp, nor is he showing any outer quad sweep with that neutral stance. And Flex's lower half is simply a lost cause from the rear, way too smooth and soft. Ronnie has no weaknesses here. Beyond the fact that I'm not crazy about the way he's wearing his posing trunks like a thong, and you could say those glutes are a little overpowering, fine, but that's not something that ought to be marked down a lot in a muscle building contest. This ain't a beauty pageant, guys. In the lat spread, it's another home run for King Coleman. He looks way wider than Nasser here compared to the front version, and has the most defined traps to boot. And we already established his dominance in the lower body, so no need to repeat ourselves here. Once again, Flex is third because he lacks the size and width of Nasser El Sonbaty. And this brings me to a general point about this contest. I think Flex was lucky to finish runner-up. After reviewing this footage, I'm actually baffled that Nasser didn't take second. It doesn't make any logical sense. Nasser was much bigger and won more poses, and was just as conditioned, maybe even more. So far, he's beaten Wheeler in every compulsory shot. So this to me is rather mystifying, but we'll see if Flex can turn it around in these last two poses. Okay, so the side triceps is difficult to judge because they weren't really holding it at the same time. I'm tempted to give it to Wheeler because Nasser's midsection looks a little ugly and he isn't hitting it great, and Ronnie's tricep is just so high and thin. Plus, damn it man, I feel a little sorry for Flex now since he's yet to win anything, and I just shit all over him a minute ago. There was no clear-cut winner here, so let's just go ahead and give it to him. It won't affect the final outcome anyway. On to the abdominals and thighs, where you can see what I mean about Nasser's midsection looking a little worse for wear, right? It's got weird, sort of dimple marks on it, perhaps injection sites, I don't know. But that vein in his lower abs there doesn't look great either, and the abs themselves are faded compared to previous years. Ronnie's abs are likewise pretty horrendous, if we're being honest. Even at this early stage in his career, those abs were malformed and pretty hideous. His quads are the best though, so I think he still edges out Nasser. Flex basically takes this pose by default, because despite giving up a lot of mass and hardness, he's got the best midsection by a mile. Again, it doesn't matter in the end, and it still doesn't change my opinion on him versus Nasser. The reason, apparently, that Flex came out ahead was because he won the symmetry round with a perfect score, which I find highly questionable. We didn't get a proper look at the semi-relaxed shots, but here's a rear relaxed where Ronnie undoubtedly prevails. And here's a front relaxed, and again, I just don't see it. The only possible way Ronnie loses this is due to the gyno. Remember guys, despite the name, the symmetry round doesn't only judge symmetry, it's evaluating the entire physique and all the same elements as the muscularity round, including mass and conditioning. So even if you give Flex the side relaxed, and that's entirely possible since Ronnie never excelled in that one, he still doesn't deserve to win that round, let alone with perfect scores. In short, I think his silver medal was a bit of a gift, and if I were in Nasser El Sonbaty's shoes, I'd be pretty pissed. At the end of the day, Ronnie Coleman definitely deserved to win this show, but other than the back poses, it wasn't a total blowout like many would suggest. Despite Ronnie claiming that this was his all-time greatest physique, and many experts concurring, he still looked vulnerable in certain shots, and I can confidently say that this was not his most dominating performance, not by a long shot. Alright guys, so that's going to wrap it up. Next time we'll be reviewing the 1999 Olympia, so stay tuned for that. It should be a good one too. But in the meantime, please let us know what you think about this contest. Would you agree that Ronnie deserved it, but Nasser got kinda screwed? Or do you feel Flex Wheeler rightfully earned that top 2 finish? Either way, hope you enjoyed this little retrospect, and if so, don't forget to like and subscribe for more. Until next time, it's the Tominator signing off, and I'll be back.